Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining us again, and welcome to the Heart of the Volunteer Veterans Podcast. We're your hosts, Josh and Chris. Welcome to the show.
How you doing today, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Good days.
It seems like we haven't seen each other in forever, but I think there's one thing that caused that.
Yeah.
What could that possibly be?
It was the weather, man.
The weather was absolutely insane here.
Yeah, it was nuts.
What do we have? Almost 24 hours of a tornado warning or watch?
We were under tornado high threat for basically 24 hours, like Monday.
Yeah, it was
like the entire state shut down. We were glued to the TV watching radar, listening.
You know, I had the radar pulled up on the laptop and on my phone, but I just kind of sat here and felt the treehouse sway back and forth.
Oh, dude,
for the day.
I've seen some pretty good storms roll through here in Stillwater, and like in my cul-de-sac, I usually gauge on how much rain we got is how full the cul-de-sac street gets full of water.
Like standing water?
Standing water.
Holy cow. Well, at least your house kind of sets up on
I'm up on the hill, so I'm good to go. But there's a couple houses in the neighborhood that are, if we would have got more rain, I mean, we've probably filled up about 3/4 of the street. It was because it wasn't draining fast enough, and it started getting into one of the neighbors' yards. It was creeping up, and I was watching it from the office window. I'm just like, oh, man. It was crazy.
I took Magnus for a walk at probably about 10 o'clock yesterday morning. Mm-hmm. And there was garden hoses, man, coming out of the houses up here past the church, coming down their driveways. People had flooding.
Yeah.
And there was just someone had a garden hose turned on, but it was coming out of their basement.
People have basements here? Basements aren't very common here.
I don't know, man. Older houses, especially here on this road right here, this all old neighborhood. But just garden hoses, man, just draining water.
That's crazy.
Stuff. I know the church over here, they had flooding the last big rain, so I imagine
this area
is it floodplain?
By the campus is, yeah.
Floodplain.
Mm-hmm. I remember one day I was trying to get to the wife on campus, and we got some torrential downpour, and I was coming in on the west side, and I had to go down 8 different roads.
Yeah.
Because I had to stop and turn around because there was low water.
Well, Duck closed off almost all access to the campus for early morning. Not that it mattered, the campus was closed, but yeah. It was sirens going off everywhere, dude. Police, people, stuck, and people trying to warn people. It was just crazy, man.
I know. I don't understand.
I just stayed in the house.
It's if you see water running across the road, you should probably turn around. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't get through that. Unless you got a Jeep.
Do you remember that? No, you remember that truck that ended up in the ditch over here, just down the road from your house? It was right over there
by the softball field.
By the softball field. Oh my goodness.
Well, all that water that comes through there comes from Boomer. So when Boomer was all the way over the road that splits the two.
It was all the way
over.
Oh wow.
So the spillway, it wasn't just trickling over. It was pouring over hard enough that there was a mist, like Niagara Falls.
Oh wow.
And then that water is rushing through town in that one little spillway.
It was going over the bridge and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
it was going over the road.
That's 10 foot.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
That is crazy.
And then all the picnic areas and the trees completely underwater on Boomer Lake. You couldn't see any of the arms that go out into the lake. They were completely gone.
Oh, wow.
You could see some of the benches, the tops of the benches. You could see them out there, but that's it.
I should. Well, I didn't want to get out. I'm not.
I would. I mean, I got the Jeep. I went cruising.
Yeah, you got a Jeep, man. I got a car. I'm not trying to do that.
Hey, so everybody, we just want to say thank you once again for the shares. A lot of shares happened on the last 3 episodes that we've done. Not counting Wednesdays, but 83 total shares, Josh, off of 3 episodes. That's coming from the Heart of Volunteer Veterans Facebook page, shared to other people's pages. 83 total shares. That's pretty good.
That's amazing.
Before that, we were at like 7 total shares for like 3, 4, and at one point it was like 4 shares up until like episode 7.
It's the key to success is sharing.
Yeah, it is, and you get the word out to more people.
Thanks to everybody who is sharing our message, sharing our stuff, our content. It's going to make this podcast. It's going to make it nice and popular. So continue to do what you do. We're going to continue to share. Just listen, give us a listen if you like it. Keep sharing it. Keep getting it. We want to reach as many people as possible.
Yep. Hey, we have been discovering that there are veterans out there that have very, very unique skills. From our hump day with Christopher Tucker, that episode, from being an archivist for a museum, a military museum, no less. And that's the kind of thing that, we want to highlight on the show, is that we have veterans out there that are doing absolutely amazing things. If you know a veteran out there and they're rocking and rolling, have them get in contact with us. You're not blowing your own horn. We're blowing your horn for you. We want to highlight you. We want you to have the stage. And so if you're out there doing something that's wild and crazy, making waves, getting after it, or something that a veteran could, a job or profession that they might enjoy, they didn't know existed, come up on the net and we'll definitely get it going. Chris is going to be coming on here periodically and basically updating us on just warfare and the history of it and how you can get involved through the museum system.
I love going to museums.
There's some good museums out there, man. They're really good, and they're only getting better. And I think Chris was saying a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're losing a lot of our veterans. Our World War II. We're starting to climb pretty deep into the Vietnam veterans. So, for him, collecting up those World War II experiences with firearms and weaponry and tactics, that's where he's at right now, is trying to collect those before it's all gone.
It's important.
Yep. And, with that kind of, a segue into the Fort Dodge Soldiers Home that's up in Dodge City. I'm going to be swinging over there here in the next few days and trying to collect up some interviews from some of the military members that are there living at the Soldiers Home. So that should be pretty good. I'm excited about that. Maybe talk to some of the staff too. I know when I went there a couple of years ago, most of the staff there that work at that hospital, they're homegrown. They're from that area. So, when they're taking care of them old folks, they treat them like they're their grandparents, and that's what I like about the Fort Dodge Soldiers Home. So I'm excited to get up there and get after that.
It's going to be. So I think it's important that we collect as many of those of their stories as possible. They're part of the greatest generation.
Yep, definitely. And we're losing them.
I know.
And
I saw something the other day, like one of the last few remaining Pearl Harbor survivors passed away.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
Yeah, we got to get out there and get them collected up. Can't let them just fade into the night.
We talked to Joe next door. He's an old World War II vet.
Yep, get his stuff. That'd be a good episode.
He's kind of cantankerous, though.
Nothing wrong with that.
Rightly so, though.
Work with him. Work on him.
It'd be good for him.
Yep. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is no stranger to coming on shows and explaining things from here and there, getting in front of people and talking. He was my XO in the Korengal Valley, and I'm excited to have him on here because we had some deep conversations up on top of his hooch in the Korengal, smoking cigars and enjoying life. So, welcome Brandon Bettis to the show. Brandon, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Chris, it's good to catch up with you, and Josh, meet you, virtually, if you will. And I like what you guys are doing. Good project, and I just want to see how I can help. So, thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. So what's going? Hey, where are you at? Where are you at right now?
So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. This is my home state, my hometown. I was born and raised here in Phoenix, and when we left active duty in 2016, we decided to move back. My wife is a native also, so we have a lot of family in this area. But I'm currently sitting in my office and talking to you fine gentlemen. The weather's beautiful. There's no tornado warnings. It's nice.
You're lucky.
Yeah, must be nice. Yeah, man. It's what kind of rain do you guys get out there? I mean, is it rain or like you said up there in like the northern part of the state with snow? What's your deal up there?
So the northern part of the state, they got some snow this weekend, which is really weird. We were going to go camping for Memorial Day with the in-laws, but it was a little bit too cold for May for our taste. But we'll get some rainy seasons. We get monsoon seasons where these big storms come through and they just dump a bunch of water, like usually around like July, August. And it's kind of nice because, in the desert, you're not used to rain, but we'll just get these torrential rainstorms. But for the most part, man, 9 months out of the year, it's just perfect weather. Sunshine, and it's perfect weather. So that's one of the things we love about it is there's no hurricanes, there's no tornadoes, there's no earthquakes, there's nothing, man. So when the apocalypse happens, people are going to be coming to Arizona. I'm telling you. It's beautiful.
I'm going to Canada.
Actually,
I'm going up north.
I think the weather, like the weather that y'all have there, is kind of like that. It's moving east. Oklahoma, some at some point in time down the line, should be similar weather-wise
to Arizona.
Yeah, because like if you notice, like the tornado threats are starting to move more east. We learned this in a class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like that science. These tornadoes are getting out of control, though, man.
It's Tuesday, man. I mean,
yeah. Hey, so Brandon, weather-wise out there for you guys are, dust devils, that kind of stuff. Do you have that, or is it just like just dust storms?
No. So before we moved back here, we would see pictures from friends out here that we would get these haboobs, similar to Iraq. Like I was never in Iraq, but like these haboobs started rolling into the valley. So you're talking about downtown Phoenix just covered in a giant sky-high dust storm, but yeah. I haven't experienced that yet. So during the monsoon season, that it's pretty unpredictable. Like you can get like flash floods and stuff like that, but
yeah.
Just because it's so dry and it's desert climate, but just don't go out into the deep desert when it happens. So you get a couple issues every once in a while. You get some hail or something, but like I said, there's nothing life-threatening. When the weather service and the news freaks out about weather here, I sit back and I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to go to my underground bunker to survive. We lived in Alabama for a little bit, and we had a tornado scare when we were there. I was like, nope, this isn't for me. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going to have my entire house blown away in like some stupid freak accident. So, no, we like it out here. It's beautiful. I encourage people to visit. Don't visit in July. Visit like in January. Come out for the Phoenix Open. Yeah. Come out for some of the stuff we do in January and February when you guys are covered in snow. Come out here with your shorts and flip-flops and tell me it's a bad place to live.
Touche.
Yeah. Hey, so Brandon, you were saying that like Arizona is your Arizona and Phoenix is like your stomping ground. Did you go to school there and all that kind of stuff? Like, well, I know you went to high school, but did you stay there for college or did you bounce out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, born and raised in Arizona, in Phoenix area, kind of a suburb of Phoenix, Glendale. And so went to school, actually joined the military after high school, and that didn't work out. So I came back and went to Arizona State University, which is one of the bigger universities out there in the Pac-12. I was always an Arizona State fan, being from here, so it was kind of the next logical step for me. Started school out there and met my wife in school. She's also a native Arizonan, or native Phoenician, if you will.
Phoenician.
And native Phoenician, that's what we're called.
Yeah, lots of terms over there that I don't understand. It's like meeting someone from a different culture.
Yeah, so it's funny because, we're like, natives of Arizona are pretty rare. Like, even when I meet other people that have lived here for 20, 30 years, they're like, I've met 3 natives my entire life. Because when you think about it, a lot of people will leave Arizona and go back east or something, or, they come out here for school. Like, they'll grow up in Michigan and they're tired of the snow, so they come out to ASU and go to school out here, and then they'll stay. But to find someone who was born and raised here is actually fairly rare. So, no, we enjoy it. It's got its challenges, but all our family's here, and we got a nice little life building up over here.
Yeah, good deal, man.
Yeah.
So, what did you go to school for?
So I actually started at ASU to be a journalism major. I wrote for my high school newspaper. I fell in love with journalism. I wanted to be like a writer or a sports reporter or something along those lines. And then, like, my freshman year, 9/11 happened, and I remember I was taking some classes. I was taking an ROTC class at the time, and that was the only class that wasn't canceled that day. But I just remember watching the coverage of 9/11, and if you remember back then, like, before 9/11, like, there wasn't, like, this 24-hour news stuff going on, Like, there wasn't, like, if you think about news coverage back then, reporters didn't just talk to fill airtime. They reported the news, you did your investigation, you did it, but that morning, they're just filling time.
Yeah.
During attacks. And so it just kind of put a really bad taste in my mouth for the career field, for the ethics behind it, for their motivation behind the career field. So I changed my major to criminal justice or justice studies. And leaving college, my goal was to be kind of law enforcement, federal law enforcement. I was going to go in the Army for just 3 or 4 years and then come out and be a Phoenix police officer and then go to the DEA or FBI. Along the way, that kind of shifted and changed, but that was my goal coming out of school. I was very focused. I was laser focused. I knew what I wanted to do. In fact, I was dating my wife in school, and we were dating for maybe about 3 months my sophomore year. And I told her, I said, when I graduate, I'm going in the Army. And this is, post 9/11, so she knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going in the Army after school. You can either bounce out now and leave me and go find someone else, or you can stick with it. But I was kind of a jerk. I said, if you ever make me choose between you or the Army, I'm going to choose the Army. It's something I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid. And she stuck with me. So we've been together ever since.
Yeah, you probably need to do that again and record it and sell that. Whatever you did to convince your old lady that was a good sale.
Well, I mean, I think after 9/11, everybody understood that action had to be taken. Some sort of action. So I can see that going over, I
almost dropped out of school. To join and, go enlisted and kick in doors and blow stuff up. But my stepdad at the time, he was a former naval officer. And then my dad was an NCO during Vietnam. And they both told me, they're like, you're an idiot if you don't finish school and go in as an officer. It was also one of those things where, I wasn't around for it, but you talk about, the initial invasions of Iraq and stuff like that and the conditions that those guys went through and how different it was. So in hindsight, it was probably a smart decision to finish school, go in as an officer, let the strategy, let the objectives, let the mission kind of pan out before jumping into it. But yeah, I was ready to walk down the recruiter station and sign up right away. But I kind of had some tactical patience and did it the right way.
Yeah, it's probably good you did that, man, because you get into like into the game when it first started. You're riding around in light skin Humvees, getting limbs blown off. It was insane.
Very unconventional.
As a specialist, you know.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that was a good choice, man. I think you made a good choice.
That's what I actually recommend to most of the ROTC kids at our school. You know, they're like, I want to join the Army. I don't know if I'm going to be an officer. And I'm like, why? You're already getting a college education. Why not
stick with it?
Use this college education and go in and be an officer. They need good leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so Brandon, let's talk about like where were you stationed at? You know, kind of start from the beginning and kind of give your your takeaway from your duty stations.
Yeah. So entered the Army as an 09 Sierra, which is an officer candidate. I didn't do ROTC at Arizona State. I went to OCS. So the process for that is basically going to basic training first. I actually graduated basic training as an E5 sergeant.
Oh,
so
man.
Hey, Chris, I was an NCO for like a day and a half, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard about me. But yeah, so, went to basic training at Fort Jackson, which that kind of sucked just because I thought I was going to go to Fort Benning. I kind of wish I would have done Fort Benning basic training, but basic training, all that time down at Fort Benning for OCS, jump school, mechanized leader school, all the officer kind of classes and stuff. Once you get your commission, giving a shot at Ranger school, all that good stuff. And then in 2007, went out to Fort Carson, Colorado. At the time, the unit was in Iraq. They were on the tail end of their 15 months in Iraq. And I kind of showed up and I was like, send me over there. And I don't care what I do. I'll carry Joe's bag to the airport for him. Like, I don't care. Just get me over there. It didn't turn out. And so I was a platoon leader in Fort Carson for 212. And that was rough because, brand new platoon leader in any unit, that's a rough job, man.
Yeah.
But when you're showing up and the dudes that you're leading just got back from 15 months of hard fighting in Iraq, and they talk about a wake call.
And they had a tough deployment.
Yeah, they did.
They had a tough.
Yeah. And luckily I was smart enough to walk in there and not try to run the show. I was smart enough to listen to my NCOs. And, I mean, the youngest private in the unit had more combat time and more experience than I did. So who am I to show up and say, hey, guys, this is what we're going to do?
Yeah.
But luckily, that was kind of their reset period. So that was a good time for me to learn from them. And then we did the EIB train up and did all that good stuff. And then I went over to be an XO in Baker Company.
Now, would you say that tactic that you use would be more like servant leadership?
Absolutely.
Just to kind of like you're there to be the leader, but you know that your guys are experienced and they know how to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's easy to burn bridges as a leader and especially as a young officer. And that's probably one of my biggest pieces of advice is we were told that piece of advice from day one of officer training. We were told that advice from day one of officer training of listen to your NCOs, learn from your NCOs. But very few young officers take that advice. They try to go in, they try to run the show, which that's your job. You're responsible for running the show and being in charge. But in my particular situation, it was easy to take a step back and listen and learn. So
that's good. That's good advice for young officers. We had quite a few in Afghanistan that we got. Like we had a boatload of them. And they'd come in, and you'd see the differences. You could tell, like, who was super motivated and who was not so, or more learning from the enlisted side.
Hey, Brandon, you still there? All right, we got some technical problems.
Technical problems.
Not a big deal. Brandon, are you still there? Randy, you still there, brother? Hey, are you back?
I'm back. I don't know if that was my end or your end, but it just dumped on me.
Yeah, you froze. You froze on our end, so we just we shut off the video just so we kind of save bandwidth.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to switch to phone or?
No. Stay where you're at, man. We're good to go.
Okay. So where did you guys lose me?
We were talking about whenever you were a lieutenant with the platoon, your first platoon, and then you moved up to XO.
Okay. All right. So after platoon leader time, had the opportunity to become the executive officer for Bravo Company 212, and at that time we knew that we were on the path chart to go over to Afghanistan. So that was a fun opportunity for me. So my time as an XO was about 6 months in garrison, getting the unit ready, which included going to JRTC and doing that rotation with them, and then deploying to Afghanistan to Kunar Province, Korengal Valley, so my overall career after Afghanistan, we'll talk more on Afghanistan, but after Afghanistan, went back to Fort Benning, Georgia, did a little bit of time in basic training world over there, and learned a lot, and kind of we had a second child while we were there, and then I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, did company command in Fort Bliss, Texas, and then I went up to Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall in Arlington, Virginia, and did almost 2 years with the Old Guard, and then that's when I transitioned off of active duty in 2016, and I'm still in the reserves out here in Arizona. So that's kind of the snapshot of the overall military career so far.
And what was your experience there at the Old Guard? What'd you think about that?
Dude, it was amazing. It was my dream job. That was one of my decisions early on, especially after 9/11, was I wanted to go enlisted so I could go up to the Tomb Guard. I kind of caught that bug early on of their mission and what they do and the perfection. I've always tried to look at perfection, and I've always been interested in perfection, if you will. And that's what their mission is. They try to perfect everything they do when it comes to ceremonies. A lot of people don't like it because it's just dog and pony stuff. But I really enjoyed my time up there. It was fun being in the area. We got to go visit the White House a couple times. All the history that's in Washington, D.C. So it's good for the family. And then the mission that I was in charge of, I was a senior planner. So I was in charge of state funerals. I was planning missions for the president, with the president participation. I was in charge of the Army 10 miler. We did the Flags In, where we planted flags at Arlington National Cemetery. So it was an amazing assignment, and that was one of the reasons I got out of active duty, because I didn't want to leave that assignment and go be an observer controller at JRTC or NTC, or get shipped off to Korea. So that was kind of how I ended my active duty time, and I don't have any regrets about it. But no, it was an amazing assignment.
You got 2 daughters, don't you?
Yeah. One was born in Colorado shortly after my wife and I got married, and she was my oldest daughter. She was about 5 months when I went to Afghanistan, and then we had a second daughter that she was actually born in Georgia in 2011. So by the time we actually moved back to Phoenix, that was another motivator to get out. Was my older daughter, she had moved 5 times in 7 years of her life. So we wanted that stability for them to be able to grow up with cousins and friends and stuff like that. So they were a big part in the decision to leave active duty.
Hey, what are you going to do, man, if your oldest daughter grows up to be just a wandering journalist? And she's like, I love the traveling life of being a military kid. What were you going to say about that?
I'll be proud of her. I'll say high five. Good job, kid. Go out there and cross the world, and I'll support you along the way. I look at my role as a parent is to get them to age 18. I want to get them to the point where I instill values and character and life lessons for them and support them. And then once they turn 18, that's on them, man. If she wants to go be a meth addict on the street,
no.
I'm like, hey, as long as you're happy, high five, but you won't see another dime from me, you know? But if she decides to pursue whatever her passion is, you know, if it's military, if it's something else, I'll support her along the way. I think that's the best thing you can do as a parent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it might be kind of ironic if she decides to just travel all over the world after I settled down in Phoenix. So,
well, here's my thing, man. I can say this. You know, my mom, she raised us kids in you know, in a home, and we lived there for years and years. And we didn't pick up and move until like I was like almost out of high school, and my mom started like getting promoted in her job in the government and all that kind of stuff. But man, I love moving around now.
Yep.
You know, it's like I was, you know, for the first 18 years of my life, I was kind of stuck in one place, and then all of a sudden, you know, the military was like, "This is how it works. We're going to move you everywhere." And now for me, I grow accustomed to like every 2 years is like, what's going next? Where are we going next? It's time to go. You know what I mean? That's why I only do 2 deployments with a unit, then I leave.
No, I agree. I was the same way. Like I was born and raised in the same house. You know, we never moved around. I was born and raised in like a 3 square mile radius in one of the biggest cities in America. And I got the same way. Like during certain assignments, like after about a year and a half, I started chomping at the bit. I'm like, all right, what's next? Like know what Fort Benning has to offer me. You know,
right?
You know, I know what there's to do in Columbus, Georgia. Like, let's go somewhere else. And so even when we transitioned, I told my wife, I was like, all right, you know, 10 years ago, I gave you an ultimatum that, you know, the Army comes first. Now you get to choose where we go. And she sat there and said, she's like, Phoenix, Arizona. I was like, okay, well, what's number 2 on the list? And she's like, there is no other list, Phoenix, Arizona. So I kind of owed that to her for everything I put her through to come back to Phoenix. And at the time, I didn't want to do that because I knew that we would probably never leave. I was still on that adventurous spirit of, I was like, hey, man, let's go live in Australia. Let's go live in Georgia. Let's go live somewhere else. You know, anywhere in the world we can go. The Army will move us one more time. But since we've been home, I think it's the right decision for us. But we'll see what happens down the road, you know. But no, I'm the same way. I want to see as much as I can while I can.
Well, man, after talking to you, Brandon, it's like, you know, like you said, you made the right choice going to Phoenix, man. It's like, you know, the family's booming there. You know, your profession is rocking and rolling. So yeah, man, good choice, dude. You know, if you look at hindsight, you know, from an outside's perspective, well done. So, well done.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're happy with it. So.
Plus, you got bang up weather also.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us as far as like being married in the military and you're transitioning around, like, was it hard for your kids to grow accustomed to that kind of lifestyle?
Oh yeah. You know, the kids and my wife. You know, like, so it's kind of funny. It was about 2010 to about 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. We were living in Fort Mitchell, Alabama. And if you ever told me when I was a kid that you'd be living in Alabama someday, I'd say you're a damn liar. You know. But it was right across the border from Georgia, and it was kind of the joke that when my wife got pregnant the second time, I told her, I said, I don't care if we're living right next to a hospital, we're going to drive to Georgia to have this baby, because I refuse to have my daughter have an Alabama birth certificate. But you know, that's hard. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, trying to make friends, trying to, you know, especially coming from the big city, it was a big adjustment. And even for my wife, like since she was a native, the first time she ever left Arizona was in, you know, besides vacation, when she moved out of Arizona to come join me in Colorado, it was November in Colorado. So you talk about this woman that doesn't know how to drive in the snow. She's away from her family for the first time. She's starting this new life, and she's having to drive to work in a blizzard. Like, that's a culture shock, you know? So there's a lot of stuff that piled up. You know, my oldest daughter would start making some friends at school, and when she would get into school, and we would have to leave. Sometimes we had to leave in the middle of the school year. There was one year, I think she was in first grade. She went to 3 different schools that year in first grade. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough for them. And when you start to see the signs that they're not happy, that's a good sign that it's time to make a change. So, you know, our moves were a little different than typical military families, just because the point in my career was changing so much, and I had the opportunity to go to Virginia. Normally, I would probably stay in Texas a little bit longer, but the opportunity to go serve in the old guard was too good to pass up. So there was a couple different factors involved in that, but it's tough. It's tough for the families.
I think that's amazing. You had the opportunity to go serve in the old guard. I mean, the honor to be able to serve in that function. I mean, it's sometimes I think it's overlooked by a lot of, you know, like military member or like Army guy, people in the Army and stuff, because you just don't see very many tabs, and you don't hear of very many people doing it. I mean, I never met anybody except for you now that was a part of the old guard. But I mean, I think I would do it in a hot second.
Josh, you would have been a good candidate for it. One, you're tall, thin, and you're precise. You know what I'm saying? Dedicated to to duty, and that, I mean, I'm telling you, that's what those. I've had platoon sergeants. I've been platoon sergeants with that were in the old guard, and when it came, I mean, they were snap and pop, man, and it was. And I love that. I love the snap and pop.
It is.
You know,
it
gives
important.
me goosebumps when I see that stuff.
I mean, like, the Marine Corps is very, very good at the snap and pop.
Oh, yeah.
I wish the Army did more of it.
It's too big. Army's too big.
I know.
To get snap and pop. You know, the Marine Corps, they like, you know, they snap towels and stuff, so it's easy to snap and pop, fellas. Hey, so Brandon, let's. Do you want to talk about your Korengal experience? I know there's a lot of guys that were in the company at that time, and we've got some Korengal guys from 2 companies before us that listen to the show. You want to talk about that any?
Yeah, absolutely. My Korengal experience was probably a lot different than most Korengal veterans, if you will, just because of my role at the time. You know, as the XO, it was a challenging environment. It was a fun environment, and our commander, he was really great about keeping me in the fold when it came to, you know, he instilled in me early on. He's like, your number one job is to be second in charge of this company. You need to know what's going on, so if something happens to him, I got to step up and take charge. But, you know, the other role that I had was logistics, and in an airlock environment, when you're talking about resupplying 5-6 outposts to include the ANA outposts, that's a tough mission, man. Like, you talking about Chinooks coming in every couple days. We were airlocked, so everything came in by helicopter.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. And when we started, you know, our backs were against the walls. Like, the Humvees that we had were 5-6 years. They're falling apart. They wouldn't make it 10 feet down the roads. We didn't have parts. We just had all this. It was like a boneyard of crap that we had to clean up. And especially when you show up and you get a mission from higher headquarters of, hey, start getting ready to pack up and pack out.
Yeah,
like, that was a tough mission. And even one thing that was really unique that I'll probably never forget from that mission was, you remember like the CDS airplane drops where they would drop the cases of water and MREs out the C-130s and stuff? Yeah. So, I mean, that was a really unique mission. And when we started that, our success rate was like 15%.
It was terrible.
Like these pieces of water, these pallets of water would come screaming down, hit the side of a mountain, and just roll. And you talk about that was our resupply. And so tackling that challenge and finding a way to increase the success rate so that we could get ready for. So basically, I mean, it came down to the point where it's like we're running out of water. Yeah. There was times where I had to make a decision of, do we get ammo or mail? And you talk about the morale in that company. Yeah, exactly. And you have to make that decision. And guys, I remember some of our guys, they would get pissed like, hey, when are we getting mail? I'm like, as soon as we're green on 120 rounds, dude. So that challenge tied with the constant fighting. And the reason I say that my experience is a little bit different is because it was the old joke in the company that my equipment had more combat time than I did. Because as the XO, anytime we had a big mission, a company mission, I'm back on the base rolling the talk and coordinating air support and helping paint the picture on the ground to support you guys out there. And so there was times where, guys would borrow my assault pack, or they would borrow a plate carrier from me because they knew that I was sitting back, and then I would go on smaller patrols. But it was just luck of the draw where every time I would go on patrol, we wouldn't get shot at. So it was kind of the joke that I was a good luck charm. And I still remember the day I got my CIB. It was about 2-3 months into deployment. And one of the squad leaders said, he's like, all right, every time we go to this village, we don't get shot at, or we get shot at. But every time we go out with the XO, we don't get shot at. So today is going to be a test of, it's going to be a science experiment today to find out which one's going to change.
Cosmic.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of fun. But no, it was a blast. It was fun. It was fun being in that environment, and truly 100% of your energy was focused on the job. And that's something that you can't get anywhere else. And so that was my only deployment. And when I look back on it, I wish I would have either had the opportunity or been able to deploy more. But at the end of the day, if you're going to have one deployment, you might as well have one really awesome, fun, historical deployment. So I don't have any regrets on that end. But I enjoyed my time there. We did a lot of great things, and I would go back in a heartbeat.
Well, I got to tell you, sir, having been there and seeing the the midnight resupplies run until 4 a.m, but resupplying Restrepo, Vegas, all that kind of stuff. I still remember, packs coming off aircraft. Were you out there when that one aircraft over at Vegas got hit?
Yep, I saw the blast.
That was like right towards the end of the Vegas run.
What happened?
They had a dude laying. He went out there like during the day and just laid and waited. And aircraft come in to do resupply middle of the night. And he stands up, RPG, hits the back of it, and so people got hurt. But the aircraft made it, flew out. But they had done that 4 years before, and they hit one and took it down.
Yep, that incident, we got so freaking lucky. Like one of the things I look back on deployment is, you can call it luck, you can call it skill, you can call it whatever, but I think overall we got pretty lucky on that deployment, and that's a perfect example of it, because I remember watching the video of it from the attack helicopters. The attack helicopter were looking right at the guy. Yeah. You can see him stand up and fire that RPG from, not far away, 100 meters away maybe, 150. He was right there next to the wire, and he tipped the ramp of the Chinook. As I think the ramp was either coming up or down. I forget if they were taking off or landing. I think they were landing, and the ramp was starting to come down. But if that ramp would have been all the way down, that RPG would have gone right up the ass of that Chinook and probably killed a lot of guys and possibly taken down the aircraft. So.
That would have been a bad day.
I do remember the incident. I just remember thinking, oh my God, how lucky they got. So
it's mostly luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough patience. He didn't get the big score. Do him on him.
I would try to squeeze that off too. But
I mean,
yeah, we had a lot of resupplies canceled because of certain elements when it came to security, and we learned a valuable lesson that day, and we learned a lot of really good lessons that carried me out through my military career from that deployment. I remember when we got back from Afghanistan, the Air Force called us up, myself and then Lieutenant Fender, who was my replacement as the XO, and they called us up and they wanted to pick our brains because when it came to that resupply mission and especially the CDS drops, they were like, you guys, the two of you, and then there was like one other unit from 4th Brigade, 4th ID, that we were the only ones literally in the world doing resupplies in the mountains.
Yeah.
And they wanted to talk to us and talk to us how we did it and what we changed and just to improve operations. So that's kind of something I hang my hat on when it comes to the overall impact you had of, talking about future generations. It's like the mission that we were handed was a very unique mission. So,
well, hey, you know what, Brandon? I like the I like the change on the CDS when we went back and like reevaluated the actual drop zone.
Yeah.
And then
you remember that video?
Yeah.
You remember the video?
and then it was like, hey, we're getting a lot of drift here, man. It's like, we're trying to account for this, but we're in the mountains, so. We drop here at Bragg, and we're going to get this kind of rate of drift, and we're going to land. But in the mountains, you can't get that. And they had to get so slow and so low. And, they got shot at a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And they wouldn't even drop. They just rip out of the valley.
Mm-hmm.
But once those band rotary chutes that they started deploying, remember that? As soon as it come out, it didn't drift at all. It just started
GPS guided parachute. It was crazy.
It started just driving it straight to the ground and it's like straight from where it came down, and that was good. Other than the fact that we got somebody got underneath one of the bundles, and got hit, like broke his shoulder.
He should have been smashed.
Hurt his back.
Man, he got lucky.
Yeah, because what did they weigh? Like 2,000 pounds.
It was
easy.
It didn't land. It hit him. It hit his shoulder
at an angle or something.
At an angle, like broke his shoulder, hurt his back. I don't know why he was out there goofing off.
Was it a soldier?
Yeah, out in the open. We were down in the worker village. That's where it happened. He got hit in the worker village, but everyone's like inside, like these little hooches, waiting for the water to hit, and he was out in the open and getting hit. It's ridiculous. I had to medevac him out.
Well, it's funny because that CDS, those missions, there was times where that was the most dangerous thing we did. Like I remember there was one time where they called up and they said, "Hey, we want to go resupply Vegas at night." And I was telling them, I'm like, "You're talking about dropping pallets of water at night. Like you're gonna crush somebody. Like the drop zone was so small." And Josh, for your situational awareness, like what happened was we would go out there to secure the bundles because otherwise the locals and even the ANA, like we would get into almost firefights over water.
Yeah. Because
the ANA would want the water, and it was like one of those things of whoever got to it first got this pallet of water. And so it was like a competition. So we would send out security to go out there and secure pallets of water. And I remember one time we took this video, and this was before, kind of viral videos, but if that happened today, it'd be a viral video. Myself and our commo sergeant, we were standing out there, and this pallet of water came down and landed about 20 feet away from us and just hit the side of this mountain and just started rolling. And all this water just starts rolling down the mountain. And he just kind of made a comment. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we get our water in Afghanistan." And I sent it to our headquarters, and that it went around the military community, and it got to the Air Force. And like a week later, I got a call from like an Air Force general. He's like, "Lieutenant, how can I help you?" I was like, "Sir, we need to adjust the drop zone, man." Yeah. So they sent out, we did all this imagery stuff, and their imagery showed like little small buildings, and they're like, "Well, we can't drop on civilian buildings." I'm like, "Listen, I'm on the ground. That building is abandoned. I don't care if it gets crushed."
Right.
Adjust drop zone. And once they did that, it improved our success rate.
Well, what was your area for like I've never done airborne operations. I've done air assault operations, but not airborne. But I imagine you have some kind of radius, like you have so many that's good, and like what does that area look like for the drop?
About 300 yards, about 300 meters of linear distance.
So you got like a 300 yard circle.
Not a circle, linear, straight.
Oh, it's straight.
Three.
Like almost.
They're running, screaming through the valley, and just dropping like a bird shitting, just dropping these things out.
And they're trying to drop it within a 300 meter stretch.
They would drop it at a certain point. They were dropping out like 20 pallets at a time, and sometimes they would come out and do 2 passes. And the thing that we noticed once we looked at the graphics that they were measuring it on, the center point of that line was right on a ridge line.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, man, just shift that 100 meters to the left, and you'll be in this little valley.
Right.
You'll be in a little draw, and it's a perfect area. But they're like, we can't drop there because there's buildings. I was like, those buildings are abandoned. It's just a structure. Drop on it.
Yep.
And once they did that, it really changed things around. So.
Well, you know what? It worked good, too, because at the end of that run, they were like right at Sergeant Major Vimoto's boys' place. They're at Vimoto, fire base, Vimoto. So they got water, too, at the end of the run, because they'd have, a bundle coming down towards them. So, yeah.
It was unique. It was a unique mission when it comes to, both being infantrymen, because we had kind of carte blanche to blow stuff up, but then also being like an executive officer where your primary mission is resupply. So it's kind of the best of both worlds of, the challenges of being in that environment on both fronts was just really unique. And it's something that, very few people in their entire military career can replicate. So I was always grateful for that experience.
Now, Brandon, what would you say as far as, I've heard a lot of people talk about, the success of the deployment, how the battalion and brigade, influenced the success prior to the deployment, with especially with the lightweight kit that we got dropped. We were talking briefly about that the other night. Can you kind of give us, your idea on how that made us successful out there, and then from the location we actually came from?
Yeah, there were so many factors involved in our success on that deployment, and I think it stems back to the NCOs. You talk about those NCOs where I mentioned earlier that, a year and a half prior they did 15 months of hard fighting in Iraq, and so they had a lot of combat experience coming in, and that built into the training program. And then our leadership, they were really big on kind of the processes and procedures and the little things like wearing knee pads and gloves and eye pro at all times, and stuff like that. Like all of that built up. And then I remember right before the deployment, the Army approved, and we were one of the test units for plate carriers. And not only just plate carriers, but lightweight kit. And so they looked at, okay, the average infantryman, he's carrying this much weight. And so they tried to shave off ounces off of our kit to include, we got issued lightweight Merrill boots. We got issued these lightweight knee pads. We got issued Magpul magazines, Surefire headlamps, like all these little small things like the assault packs we got were Mystery Ranch, state-of-the-art, high-tech, lightweight assault packs. And all that added up, combined with our training regiment at high altitude in Fort Carson. And so when we showed up to Afghanistan, and specifically the Kunar province and Korengal Valley, we were in top shape. We were used to elevation. We weren't carrying as much weight. And I remember the unit we replaced, we showed up and we had plate carriers, and they were pissed.
Yeah.
Because they were using the old IOTVs, and they were stripping weight off where they could. And we showed up, probably 20 pounds lighter, maybe 15, 20 pounds lighter. And that makes a huge difference when you're climbing mountains. So that combined with the leadership mentality of we're going to take the fight to the enemy, and we're going to get out there, we're going to patrol. We're not just going to go out at night and just, pretend to set up an ambush and call it a day. We went out hard, and we went aggressive. And I think that kind of shifted the tide when it comes to that area. And, you can look at the stats of we lost one guy to combat death, whereas the unit before us, I think they lost like 9 or 10 in just that one company.
Yeah.
So when you look at just stats alone, you can call it luck, you can call it skill, you can call it whatever it is, but there was a lot of factors that played in our favor. That some of it was just a coin flip. You talk about big attacks on Keating. That was a coin flip. Finding heavy weaponry up in the mountains. Some of that it felt like a coin flip. But when you look back, it was our training, it was our NCOs, it was our officers, and our mentality of we're gonna go out there and crush some souls.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm, man. I think, battalion command, brigade command, and, the big thing is the focus. Like you said, when we showed up in the valley, they're like, it's going to be a tough fight. So prepare to go ahead and retrograde the Korengal while you're doing that. And it was like, what? But the thing is, I think we got so much, like General McChrystal, he was putting so much focus on us. Then, at the same time, you got, Mr. GQ himself, Mark, and his dad, and McChrystal being, West Point buddies. We got a lot of focus put towards us, and it really gave us the ability to do things different than other units had done. Get out farther, stay out, and it was good, man. Coming from 5th RTB, that was like the perfect follow-on mission for me. And to fall in on a company that was trained, ready to go. The NCOs, we're going to have Derek's going to be coming on here.
Oh, cool.
He's going to come on and talk. And, he was heavy, patrol platoon leader there. He's got some good stuff. But, man, just a perfect storm, dude. Great leadership, great soldiers. You could pick that up and move it anywhere and be successul. That's what I believe.
No, I agree.
That's what I believe.
I agree. Like you said, the perfect storm of there's so many little small factors. And you mentioned Derek. Like Derek was a replacement. Like he got to our unit like 2 months before we deployed.
Yeah.
And so like little factors like that of, if we would have gotten a different platoon leader, how much different would that deployment looked? If we would have had a different commander, if we would have had, even down to the IO campaign, the information operations, like we were doing storyboards on our missions, and that would lead to more assets from brigade because they saw what we were doing, and they saw the success we had. So anytime we called for air support, we got it. We got it in a heartbeat. Like helicopter pilots would come to the valley and they'd be like, hey, we're kind of bored. Can we do a test run? We're like, yeah, go hit this area right here. Yeah. And little factors like that played such a huge role in our success in that area. On top of the mission we were handed of, moving out and moving stuff out and then all that stuff. So it was, like I said, it was a really unique deployment and a really interesting deployment. And I'm grateful that I was part of the team. I was grateful I could play a small role in it. And those guys will always be brothers.
Well, hey, Brandon, we're going to have you come back on, man, and we'll talk, we'll talk Korengal some more with some more of from the soldiers from that company.
Absolutely.
And just, and paint a better picture. And, the big thing is, I think off of, bringing in teams to talk about that stuff is clarifying some areas that you weren't quite sure of. It kind of helps, helps a veteran to kind of
pieces the story because you have it from different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the same story, It's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Anytime.
I think it's amazing. I had air support all the time.
Well, that was the key. Our company commander and our battalion commander and our three, they came up with a pretty good system of, we got patrols going out, and like Brandon was saying, the storyboards were getting, they were so complete that we were getting air assets. But then the company commander was like, "Hey, our patrol's not It's not at the village yet. Stay out of the valley. And they would go out and support Michigan. Remember that? We would let them lure out there at Michigan. And as soon as, Derek would call them like, hey, we're here. And then all of a sudden you would hear troops in contact, machine gun fire, from a distance. And those aircraft would just scream into the valley and just take care of business.
Yeah.
It was, and then, of course, you had the guns out of Blessing. They would start barking, 120s out of the cop.
I give a lot of credit to that 120 team, man. Those guys were on point. Like, our fire support, both at battalion and then at company, like you talk about, I mean, they helped change doctrine for fire support, like the search and traverse.
Right.
Like, I mean, they would come up with new techniques. And those young mortarmen, like the experience that they got in that valley was amazing. So we had a lot of freedom to try different things and work on different tactics, and it was amazing. So I think, you're talking about, that's a couple different episodes. You get a couple Korengal vets on and just talk about different experiences from there. So
you know what, Brandon? I think the mortarmen alone would be an episode that would keep people awake at night. Just going down there and then, it's just a regular day, a regular afternoon, nothing serious going on. And all of a sudden, the cop would get hit, but they would pin down with small arms fire and RPGs. They would pin the mortars into their hooch so they couldn't get out. And then they would just pound us with everything from the other end of the valley and tell the mortars, but they would get out. And start like 3 120 rounds would go until they get like overwhelmed, and then
within seconds they got so fast at their jobs.
So they were coordinating your mortar teams so that they could attack
everybody else. Because they were so lethal.
Man, that's coordination, man.
And then but the thing is, once they got rocking, you couldn't stop them. And some of the videos these guys had. Remember we got a lot of attention. We did. We had. We're on, YouTube a couple of times, a company with live video, from a journalist coming out there and hanging out with us. So my hat's off to the mortarmen, man, because if it wasn't for them, no one would make it back.
No,
period. That's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, early on, like there were some issues, but like we got it fixed quick. And I remember like our average rounds down range time, like it started off at like maybe 3-4 minutes. I don't quote me on that, but I mean, they got it down to like under a minute. Yeah. Like calling in troops on contact to getting, like they were hanging rounds within a minute.
I mean, it was lightning
fast. It was lightning fast. They got that system down.
You never worried when you're on patrol. Because here's the thing. It's like, you got the mortar platoons aren't coming into every meeting. Hey, I can support you here. I can fire on that ridge line. I can fire behind that, and just building it up for the platoon leader and the platoons. And man, I mean, you go out there and it's like, hey, we got the 120s. They're going to rock it for us. Blessing's going to rock it. We got aircraft. We're good to go, guys.
120 is a big mortar too.
Yeah, it is. That thing screams. I love that. I love that thing.
Be spitting 120s. That'll shut down an enemy attack real quick, though.
It does. Especially, when the aircraft come in and they start blazing, that's when it feels good.
Yeah.
It still feels good. I still like to build a house on 1709, though.
Didn't we start calling it like 1650?
Yeah. There's a hilltop, like 1705 is the name of it. And this thing got hit they would hit us from it, and we would bomb it. So literally it's like 1705, 1695.
Oh, the elevation?
1675. It just kept going down and down.
I mean, you're talking, we're dropping 500-pound bombs right on top of it. And so over the years, the amount of ordnance that hit that one rock.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the most bombed place on the face of the planet.
I'd have to talk to Derek and ask him what it looked like. He went up there on 1705 on that the last round of missions we did. I'd have to ask him what it looked like, because I've only seen it through binos.
I wonder what the elevation of it is now.
I don't know. But here's the thing. That the Korengal Valley is the dark side of the moon. The rock and everything over there, the trees, they're indestructible. They're indestructible. The trees will burn for months. You hit it, and they burn for months. It's not a big deal. And they look like they're this small, like toothpicks. They're massive on top of these mountains. Mm-hmm. And you got to figure, if they had the sack to grow out of the mountains, they got a lot of minerals in them. They're hard.
Yeah.
They're hard. Yeah.
I'd like to build some furniture out of some of that.
Do that. I'll show you pictures of the wood they just left on the side of the road. You could build a house out of the pile of wood.
It's beautiful wood, man.
Yeah.
Timber trade.
I'll tell you what, that shit saved my life on that very first time we got hit coming out of, was it Aliabad? And we got hit. And my little group of 4 dudes, we got stuck behind one of those piles right before you make the run up the Dallas Dash where Goodrich got shot.
I wonder what it would take to get some wood to build a table from the Korengal.
Impossible.
And nothing's impossible.
That is impossible.
That's an act of God.
You would need Baker Company to go back in and secure you while you chopped off a piece of wood.
I know. If we get impossible. a table built
with Korengal wood, that'd be awesome.
Korengal wood, how sweet would that be?
I didn't think of that. I should have brought some wood back.
I'm a woodworker, so
hey, I'll snap a picture and send you that. Remember that cigar holder I was carving out of that rock?
Yeah,
I still got it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a picture for you.
You showed it to me last week.
Yeah. I put my J's on it now. hey, so Brandon, let's talk about your transition, man. Into civilian life. I know that you're still in, and you still got the mindset. I mean, you're living around, civilians, living in their world. What kind of transition issues did you have joining in on that?
So I think for me, the transition was kind of sudden. Because like I said, I never expected to be in the old guard. Once I got to the old guard, it was a different kind of mission set. The tone of the Army was changing a little bit when it came to, officer promotions and stuff like that. So I kind of made the decision fairly quickly. Like, it wasn't like I didn't have like 2-3 years to prep for it. It was like, yeah, let's pull the trigger, and 6 months later, let's drop this packet and let's get out of here. So that was rough. And for me personally, the big thing was trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I think a lot of transitioning military face that same kind of fear and that hesitation. Because, my whole life, I wanted to be a soldier. And I loved my job. I loved being around soldiers. I loved being around, I loved the mission and the experiences. And I was sitting at 10 years in the military, and it was like, okay, let's get out. And so one of the big pieces of advice I give people is when you are facing that decision, there's 3 categories you want to look at. You want to look at location, job satisfaction, and income. And your first move out of the military, this is talking active duty, your first move, try to satisfy 2 out of those 3 requirements. If you can satisfy 2 out of those 3 requirements.
Hey, we're losing you again, Brandon.
You still hear me?
Yep. Yeah, you're back.
I got you.
Okay, sorry. So for my situation, when it came to location, job satisfaction, and career income, my wife, she kind of decided, she's like, well, we're going to Phoenix. I was like, okay, I either got to find a job that pays well or find a job that I enjoy. And that was the biggest struggle for me is, I was getting job offers from Amazon and UPS and kind of middle management, shift work, working in a warehouse type jobs. But I knew I'd be miserable. I knew I'd be, I would hate my life, but the money would be good. The money that I needed to support my family would be there. So it was trying to find that balance of what does the next chapter look like. And luckily I was able to get into the financial services industry, and it was kind of by chance. It wasn't something I planned on, and I didn't have a background in finance, but I love it. And I found a career that I love going to work every day, and I can probably make some pretty good money at doing it. So I encourage guys that are transitioning to kind of look at that, like find your next purpose in life. And it's easier said than done. But don't be scared. Just go. Just start going in one direction. Put one foot in front of the other, and go with that in mind. Of you're never going to find the perfect job out of the military, but if you can satisfy 2 of those 3 requirements, that's a start. I think a lot, especially with junior enlisted, I think they make the decision without weighing a lot of factors. So I encourage young soldiers listening, or anyone who's in that transition struggling, just kind of take a step back and, what do you want to do in 20 years? Quit thinking about today, think 20 years down the line. Seek a mentor, find a mentor, take advantage of all the benefits you have, take advantage of all the programs that are out there for transitioning guys. I went through some dark times when it came to that transition, but came out the other side better for it, and now I'm ready to crush the world.
Hey, Brandon, talking about, most of the veterans we've had on, they were either going through a divorce or single when they got out. What advice would you give to a veteran that's getting out, that's married, got 2 daughters, 2 boys, whatever the case may be, as far as transitioning with your family, like the keys, like 2 points that you think are key to being successful with your family in a transition?
I think putting them first. We talk about our military career and having a family and being married in a military career, and there's a lot of time where the family has to take a back seat. There's a lot of times where the spouse has to take a back seat. The spouse is at home raising the kids when we're having fun blowing stuff up in the Korengal. The spouse is raising the family when we're out in the field. The kids are picking up their lives and moving to the next duty station. So when you can control that more, because as a soldier, we can't control that. There's times where the Army says, hey, you're going here, and you can't control it. As much as you want to, you can't. But as a civilian, and during that transition, now you can control it. So I encourage guys in that situation with family and kids, swallow your damn pride. If you have to go work 3 or 4 jobs to be able to live in a better school district for your kids, do it. Because you think about what your kids sacrifice for you. If you have to sacrifice your job for your wife's career now, do it. The days of her not having a career are over, because now you can kind of make that balance, and you look her in the eye and say, where do you want to go and what do you want to do? Because now she has a vote. In the military, those military spouses, they don't have a vote, sometimes. So in order to get that, you have to kind of look at them and sit there and say, what do you want to do? You sacrificed for me all these years. Now it's my turn to sacrifice for you. And just having that balance and that communication. But it's tough. It's never easy. Moving, getting settled. We bought a house when we got here. That was another set of challenges. But it helped that we moved back to an area with a lot of family, with a lot of support. My kids can grow up around their cousins. They can establish friends in the neighborhood. They can, my mom can babysit them and see her grandchildren and stuff like that. So as a veteran, you got to kind of swallow your pride and put them first. I think that's probably the biggest thing that will make your transition successful.
And it's hard to do because, I know when I got out, I was thinking, and of course it was just me. I'm thinking like this, it's all about me. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I'm the one that came from here. I'm the one that has to go and start at zero. But at the same time, I think if we really think about it in these terms, I can start at zero and still get to 100 very, very quick. You know what I'm saying? It's the skills that that we've, the guys and gals have been given, during their service, that they've got the ability to, have setbacks and jump forward and make advances.
Yeah. And when I talk to a lot of military transitioning and guys, one thing I see, and I face the same thing, is you face a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah.
You think about a young infantryman, 23 years old, he gets out and then he goes be a security guard or a police officer. It's like, dude, what do you want to do long term? Mm-hmm. If you want to run a business, go find a business and walk up to the business owner and say, Here's my resume. This is what I've done. This is the skill I bring to this job. Train me.
Yep.
99% of business owners are going to say, come on, young buck, let's go. And so they sell themselves short and they settle. And then they're unhappy. And a couple years later, they're like, oh, I'm just a security guard. I'm just a police officer. I'm working in a warehouse. It's like, dude, that's on you, man. Like, you have so many advantages going for you where you talk about education, benefits. There's so many programs. And I meet a lot of people where their entire mission is to help transitioning military. Mm-hmm. There's so many programs and nonprofits and charities and they're begging for veterans to step up and say, I need help. So I don't have much sympathy when it comes to some transition military where they want to have the kind of the pity party and talk about how transition is so hard. Like, yeah, man, it's mentally difficult. But if you take a step back and you realize what you've done and the skills you bring to the civilian workforce, it's unmatched. It's unmatched. And so guys got to have some confidence in that transition. And like you said, we're resilient. We've been training resilience. So when it comes, if you got family, put them first. And because you can adapt. It's going to be easier for that veteran to adapt and get support and get resources than it will be for the spouse. Don't be selfish and say, I'm going to go work on an oil pipeline up in Alaska. I'm going to drag my family up there with me. It's like, dude, come on, man. So I mean, that's a weird example, but I think that's key when it comes to eliminating another stress from your life. Because if you're going through that transition, you're trying to find a new job, and you're dealing with a civilian, and you're dealing with the changing lifestyle, and on top of that, your wife and your kids aren't happy, dude, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It's a perspective, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Change your perspective, you will be successful.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I like how you say that, Brandon, because I'm a firm believer in if I've got an E4 and I make him or her a team leader and they're leading other young men and women anywhere, they can do anything in life. Now, if they've jumped out there on deployment and they've been in charge of four volunteers and they're out there doing good work, they can do anything out here in the civilian world. They can go through any hardship. They can bounce back from any struggle. I just think at times they don't take that into account. When I think of like you and me, and I think of like the total amount of soldiers that we have led, you can't come out here and expect anything other than getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? With that kind of experience, it's like hey, we're going to start building up to a 25-mile road march. Well, once you've done the 25-miler and they come out and say, hey, we're doing a 12-miler this morning, you're like, okay, and 12 miles doesn't mean anything. So, I would just like to see veterans, start to realize their own self-worth, their experiences, the life that they've lived. It amounts to an incredible amount of, of advantage out here in the veteran land.
Agreed, 100%. And when you think about the civilian, what civilian companies are looking for in a good employee, the E3, the E4, the E5, they have it. It doesn't matter about combat experience. It doesn't matter. Like the stuff you learn in basic training will set you apart. Even if you got in the military the day after basic training, you are now head and shoulders above your civilian counterparts.
Yeah.
And that's what guys don't realize. And so, quick story, like when I transitioned, I participated in this, it's called Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship. And it's basically like an internship with some of these top companies. You're talking like Amazon, Deloitte, UPS, and I got selected for it. I had to fight for it. I had to fight my chain of command for it because, the old guard mission never stops, and I was a senior planner, and I eventually told him, I was like, hey, my new full-time job in the military is transition. So I'm going to go do this program, and what it was I worked with UPS 4 days a week, and then on Fridays I went back to my unit. It was a really unique program that I was able to take advantage of. But, learning about UPS and what their mission was and what they're looking for in good management and senior leaders and supervisors and even the workforce, military has it. Yeah. The companies like that are so desperate for leadership. The only thing, their criteria for hiring at UPS is show up on time. That's it. That's their only criteria. And they can't find people to show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, work 3 hours, get full benefits, and they'll help pay for school. Show me another job on the planet that's going to do that. And all you have to do is show up.
Yeah.
You're telling me that any transition military doesn't have those skill sets? And so I agree. I think guys are selling themselves short. They come out here expecting to make a bunch of money right off the bat. They expect everything to be free. They expect to get 100% VA disability and live off that paycheck. That's not the world out here. You guys just show up and work. Show up in the right uniform, the right time, the right place, and you'll be the CEO of UPS someday. If you don't believe me, I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Hey, Brandon, if you start hearing, and I'm going to do the call out too to other veterans in the areas, if they start having jobs that are opening up in their areas, come up on the net and let us know so we can put this information out on our Facebook page. We'll put it out in the episodes. Even if your company's looking for somebody, we can throw it out there and give them some connections.
I mean, I think that's key, because that information's out there. People don't think it is. Like, I would encourage a lot of veterans to get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not a Facebook. It's not social media. It's a place to literally, you can message the CEO of a company and say, hey, sir, here's my resume. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I like about your company. Here's what I can bring to your table. And a CEO will email you back and say, let's have a talk. Like, that's the tools that we have at our disposal. And for guys that want to come out to Arizona and Phoenix, I'm on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, and I will bend over backwards to have a phone conversation. I've talked to a lot of transition military as a mentor to give them just little tips and tricks, little things that they can change, little tiny, here's a book you can read, here's a website you can visit, here's something you can change for your resume, here's what I recommend for interview preparation, look at this program, look at that. And guys, other veterans are out there waiting to give that advice. But the mentee, the guy transitioning, the girl transitioning, they're not willing to ask. And so that's on them. But there's so many resources out there when you talk about hiring or getting in a certain career field. It's up to that young trooper to kind of figure out what he wants to do and what that path looks like, and just start moving down that path. I don't want to make it sound too simple, but it really is that simple.
Hey, Brandon, you know what? You're the second guest that's come on. CJ Gates said in the last episode that getting a mentor was the key, and you just said that. And I got to tell you, man, that I've never. I didn't apply, go find a mentor. I didn't do that. There wasn't any mentors of my level, out and about where I was at, other than just sitting and talking to my grandpa from time to time. I think that's key, man. Finding somebody that's been out, got their feet underneath them. They've networked a little bit, and they can help plug a veteran in and make it just a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even need to be a military or a veteran mentor. It could be a civilian. Like, people are, military guys and veterans, sometimes they look down on civilians, or, we sit there and say, oh, this is my experience. What have you done with your life? And we have this chip on our shoulder that we're better than them. When I got tied in with LinkedIn, and I knew I was going back to Phoenix, Arizona, and I knew the firm that I was looking for in the finance industry, I literally went on LinkedIn. I Googled, finances for this company in Phoenix, and I found 20 guys, 20 people in that career field. I literally shot every single one of them a note. I said, I'm looking to start at your firm. I want to do this career. Here's my experience. Your resume's on LinkedIn, so I was like, hey, feel free to check out my profile. And I basically said, can I have 30 minutes of your time to talk and ask questions? I messaged probably 20 of them. I would say probably anywhere like 12 to 15 messaged me back. And they were like, how's Tuesday at 3 for you? I was like, great. And I literally just called and had a 30-minute conversation about what were my questions about this career field, about the Phoenix area, about, what should I do now to prepare? How can I help? How can you help me with interview prep? And it's funny because one of the guys that I connected with, he was up in Flagstaff. He was the guy interviewing me for the job. And so when I did the interview, I told him, I was like, yeah, you and me connected a month ago on LinkedIn. Do you remember that? He's like, oh, yeah, I remember. That was the easiest interview I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
So little stuff like that veterans aren't doing. And this doesn't even go for veterans. This goes for college graduates. This goes for everybody. Quit being so afraid to ask for help. Quit being afraid to say what you want. You figure out what you want, and then go ask. People are out there. They're willing to ask. I bet you I could email top CEOs in this country. I could email Warren Buffett and ask his advice on finances, and I bet you he's going to respond. I bet you he would. It might take a couple tries.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? People are willing to help. It's human nature, and we sell ourselves short when it comes to that. So,
yeah, we have CEOs come to. I'm in the School of Business right now here at Oklahoma State, and we have CEOs that come all the time and talk to us, and they have mentors. They consistently are always talking about networking. Use your network all the time.
I'm glad to see veterans start to use this network, plugging it, because you can find anything. You can find a fishing rod to a bass boat in the veteran community. You could find a job. You could find a house. You can, you know what I mean? You can find a mental health provider. You just have to engage the network, and you're going to find something. That's another reason why I love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, people will spend hours a day on social media like Facebook looking at memes, or they'll be on their phone playing games, but they won't spend 20 minutes on a professional networking site just looking for people in a chosen career field that they want to be in and shooting them a note and just, stuff like that. So, I agree with the networking piece of it, going out and networking in person. A handshake at a cocktail party or a speaking event or a seminar goes a long way. And then you connect with them on social media, or you shoot them an email and just say, hey, thank you for your time. That stuff's rare. That stuff doesn't happen these days, of an email saying, hey, thank you for your time and your 10 minutes to give me some advice. And that guy will remember you. That person will remember you. I guarantee it.
Now, on top of that, Brandon, you're not only doing the LinkedIn, but you're actually out there meeting with people on behalf of the veteran community.
Absolutely.
And other charities.
Yeah, I have actually a meeting this afternoon with the ASU veteran alumni group. It's either veterans that went to school after their service, or they graduate from ASU. But I started to notice that they were doing a lot of events, but they weren't doing enough, and I don't think they were doing enough to engage the veteran population here in Phoenix and around the world. And so I literally emailed the president. I was like, you guys can do better. What do you need my help with? And he's like, we got a meeting next week. Come on, be a part of our leadership team. I was like, I'll be there. It's that simple.
Yep.
Finding other projects, and it helps me because it aligns with my civilian career, but also on the reserve side, I'm in charge of half the state of Arizona for the selective service system. So, for example, just this last Saturday, I went and met with a bunch of commanders for the Northwest Valley, kind of like American Legion and VFW groups, and there's all the commanders in the Northwest Valley. And I gave a presentation on putting flags at grave sites for Memorial Day that I learned while I was in the old guard.
Yeah.
When they plant flags at Arlington every Memorial Day, they're actually going out. I think Thursday afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon they're gonna go plant 400,000 flags. So all I did is I walked up there, I gave them some tips, and the tips I gave them were like, hey, sharpen the end of the flag. It goes in the ground a lot easier. Here's how you line the flags up, and that conversation led to conversations about finances. It led to conversations about the selective service system. It led to conversations about how to help transition the military from an hour of my time on a Saturday morning. And the amount of connections I made from that one meeting of how we can help another guy it's one at a time, man. And I don't think there's enough people out there doing it. Just small steps will add up over time.
Yeah, definitely, man. I like that.
It's good stuff right there.
All right, Brandon. Hey, what would you say your lessons learned from your your civilian life as a kid, coming into the military, and then through your transition? What do you got for everybody to help them get on down, get another day out of this thing?
Yeah, so I got a couple things. I think number one, and this applies to kind of military and civilian life, is at the end of the day, just be yourself. I think there's a lot of guys out there trying to fit a mold. When you talk about the military, a young kid coming in, he's got to be the tough kid. He's got to be, you got to run the fastest. You got to lift the most. You got to do this. You got to do that. I think at the end of the day, if you take a step back and you be yourself, and this goes back to when I was a platoon leader and meeting my platoon after they got back from Iraq. Like I didn't come in there and try to be a General Patton. I didn't come in there and try to change anything. I was myself. Like my personality is I'm laid back. I'm a West Coast guy. I'm a shorts and flip-flops kind of guy, and that's the kind of leader I was. And when I was in company command, I did the same thing. Along with just take care of others and think long term. I think those three things, kind of be yourself, take care of others, and think long term will get you a long way in life. There's too many people who are thinking about next week, next month. No one's thinking 20 years down the line. Few people are, I should say. And then, if you do, there's a really good Zig Ziglar quote that says, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll have everything you want in life. And that applies to both the military and civilian job. Like if you go out there and hold yourself out as someone who cares and wants to help other people, eventually everything will fall in place for you. And that's what we're taught as officers and NCOs is take care of the guy below you. And you take that out into the civilian world and you'll do a lot of great things.
That's good advice, Brandon. I like that, man.
Giver.
Yep. Brandon, hey, we're probably going to have you come back on here one of these times, man, and talk to us about maybe have a couple of more veterans come on, maybe do a round table and talk about the job search. Talk about Absolutely. The job search. Talk about the little nuances, the little things of going out there and not just finding that job, but taking your military experience
and converting it,
and how to make that strong in just about any environment. So if you can engage with some of your folks, see if you can't get together a couple of folks, and we'll put an episode together. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like what you guys are doing here. I like the idea of it. And again, it goes back to, just helping other people. If this episode reaches one guy, one girl, one person, then we've done our job. And that's how I look at it. So I encourage anyone listening, reach out. Chris knows how to get a hold of me. Josh knows how to get a hold of me. You can Google my darn name. I think there's one guy in Missouri that has a black eye. It's not me. I got to fix my Google just to make my name a little better. But, I'm on social media. I'm always willing to help anybody. It doesn't matter what your lot is in life. You can be any branch of the military, officer, enlisted, whatever. I like to help other guys. And that's the reason I do that is because I had all these same questions when I was transitioning. I had all these same questions. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Reach out to somebody and just ask for help and go out and crush the world.
That's solid stuff. So we're getting around to our safety brief item. Do you have something that we can leave our listeners for the weekend?
So my go-to when I was doing safety briefs, at the end of the day, just don't do dumb stuff. That's kind of what I left with my guys with. And I used to always tell them, I said, if you don't know what dumb stuff is, come see me and we'll have a conversation about it. But, kind of just stay out of trouble. Make the right decisions. We all know what the right decisions are. Don't do dumb stuff. So I guess that's the best I had.
No, that's sound stuff right there.
Yeah, it's solid, sir. Nothing wrong with that. Josh, what do you got, brother?
With the time of year it is for us people here in the Midwest, be careful with the weather. If you see high water, turn around. That goes to the don't do dumb stuff. Thank you, sir, for that.
Hey, for me, everybody, just take the time to slow down a little bit this weekend. Kind of look around, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, and enjoy life. Have a good time and be safe doing it. Stay blessed. Hey, Brandon.
Noel.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. It was it's good having you. We'll definitely have you on here again.
Yes.
Hey, time, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. Keep doing what you guys are doing. I encourage other veterans out there to share their stories. We all got something unique. So thanks for what you guys are doing. I hope this podcast is a smashing success, man. Anything I can do to help.
Thank you very much, Brandon.
Well, like I said, man, you're I told you we're going to be calling on you, having you come on the show. So think of if you think of some areas where veterans could use some words, use some improvement, some guidance. Come up on the net and let us know.
Absolutely. Same here.
Hey, everybody! Thanks for joining us today. We had Brandon Bettis on here. Great episode, and thank you for coming on, brother.
And don't forget to like, share, comment. If you like this episode, share it to your people. Continue this train rolling. And the only way we're going to reach the most amount of veterans possible is by sharing and passing the word around.
Boom.
Noel and Fisher, copyright 2019.
Enjoy it.